Hello there, I'm Tony Gale and you are listening to We Are West Ham podcast. You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. And I don't know about you, but supporting West Ham is getting exasperating. Somehow we thrashed, whipped, it's destroyed Champions League hopefuls Wolves 4-0 at home. I think it's our joint highest ever winning margin at the London Stadium. No one saw it coming. I certainly didn't see it coming. None of us did on the predictions last week. Dan from the Wolves 77 podcast didn't see it coming. No one saw it coming. Whether it was David Moyes being at home, Alan Irvine, football managing genius, no one really knows. But lads, brilliant to see you again. I'm not sure about you. Everyone else was pretty thrilled with it on Twitter. I'm just absolutely worn out of trying to keep up with this football club. Glad to see you both again. It's been a while. Wonderful to speak to you both after a league win. First one of the season, of course. James, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Slightly jealous of your tan. You're still in Portugal.
It's not bad, is it?
And your very loud shirt. But yeah, I'm great. I still can't believe what happened Sunday night, as you said. Thought we might nick it on the night, but never saw 4-0 in a million years. And yeah, it's just made waking up on Monday morning much easier than it has been for a while.
Absolutely, yeah. I just in case you were wondering, for those of you watching on YouTube or who haven't watched on YouTube yet, more importantly, I think the boys will probably agree that this week is the one to do. I decided to extend my stay in Portugal, lucky enough to be able to work remotely. And after hearing weather reports from England and the quarantine potential I was facing, I decided it would be best to spend another week in the sun of the Algarve. But with that, of course, comes some very wafty holiday shirts. So if you haven't already logged on to the We Are West Ham YouTube channel to watch me and the boys, because we've launched it this season, and all of the podcasts and the records are available to watch in full on YouTube. I think this week is probably the one to do it, just to see the state of this shirt that I am wearing. And the link for that, the link for the YouTube, will be in the description of the podcast for this week. Thomas Edwards, not quite as tanned. I took all of this as inspiration from you when you broadcasted and did the We Are West Ham show from Ibiza. I must admit, Oleao in Portugal, not quite as exotic or party heavy, but it's all come from you, mate. How are you?
Very good, mate. Like Jonesy said, I'm a little bit jealous of that tan. I'd have to be out there a few months to come back looking at bronze, pal. But yeah, mate, all good. It's a lot easier the next week after win. I'm not going to lie to you. And you could not be thrilled. I don't get me wrong. The morning after, I was like, what happened? It feels like a dream. And now it's all back to reality that we haven't signed anyone, all this, and the negativity was coming immediately. But, mate, very happy. What a performance. What a performance. That's why I support West Ham for days like that. And it's made this week a lot easier.
Absolutely. Now, I don't want to turn it to a negative straight away, because before, in the past, me and James have done shows, especially in the height of the fan dissatisfaction and the board protests, all that sort of stuff. We've done shows and we've got odd results in amongst all the negativity. And me and James have been quick to say, look, one win doesn't change everything. It obviously takes the heat off a bit. But at the moment, I don't know about you two, but I just feel like reveling it for a bit. I'm not in denial at all that this changes anything that's happened at the club. But we didn't scrape it. We won 4-0, didn't we? We beat Wolves 4-0, and albeit they were off, and you can see, I feel certainly they probably are a little bit of a weaker team without those big players, Jota and Doherty, that they've let go this summer. The new lads will obviously take a bit of time to bed in, but I really don't care for semantics tonight, James. We won 4-0. I can't believe it. It doesn't really matter who you play, does it?
Yeah, no, but my head's telling me to just don't get too carried away, but my heart's just going, yeah.
My body.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just pop open the bottle of champagne and let's enjoy it. I think, we haven't had a moment like that for a while, have we? Even at the beginning of last season when we'd beaten Man United and we were getting a bit excited then before it all went wrong when Fabianski got injured. it still didn't really touch on the feeling that particularly I had on Sunday. It was like almost like shock, and where the hell did that come from? We're meant to be a club in complete disarray, both on and off the pitch. We're not meant to be beating clubs like Wolves 4-0. Yeah, exactly. It's like, hang on, you shouldn't be doing that. What are you doing? But yeah, I mean, you're right. It is only one result, but I saw someone tweet the other night. If you include cup games, we've actually only had one bad performance out of 5 this season. Okay, we've beaten two League One clubs.
Don't rile me up already, James.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying not to, but I thought when I saw that, I thought, do you know what? Actually, no, it's true. We were poor against Newcastle, but we've easily beaten 2 cup sides. With second string sides really. We're very unlucky against Arsenal the week before, and then we've brushed aside Wolves. So there might be reason to be positive moving forward, but we have to keep our feet on the ground. Maybe we'll come crashing back down to earth against Everton in the cup, but we'll see.
Don't start all that positivity now, Jonesy. I'm loving this week. I started it last week, and you two were all, well, how many points have we got after the Arsenal game? I'm not having it. I'm not having you to take the positive banner off of me this week. Absolutely not. Not you either, Edwards. That is for sure. Look, before I get the thoughts of the boys, we'll go into the Wolves game in a bit more detail. I've already decided tonight was going to be a positive show. Whether we like it or not, we've got to revel in a 4-0 win. We're through to the next round of the Cup. And as the time of recording, it's still 24 hours until we kick off against Everton in that League Cup game that Jonesy was talking about. So there's still time to be cheery then. If you're one of those people who listen to the podcast later in the week and we've been slapped 6-0, well, I'm sorry about that. We can't help it. But as of Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, me and the lads are still buzzing. Bit of housekeeping as usual. The Fantasy Premier League, We Are West Ham League is still going. Edwards, I'll talk to you about that in a minute. The code, for those of you who don't know already, is lowercase CNY6OU. You can still join up to that, I think, in excess of 400 to 500. We'll have a few shout outs for those. The leader of the We Are West Ham League at the moment, Jonesy, having his customary tragic start to a fantasy football season. Tom, I believe you're doing even worse. As we've already mentioned, subscribe to the We Are West Ham YouTube channel where you can watch every single one of our shows that we record over Zoom. The link to that is in the podcast description below, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever. Click on this episode that you're already listening to, go into the description, and you'll find the link to our YouTube channel there, or you can have a look at my wafty shirt and James's shirt in honour of the DT38 Dylan Tombides Foundation, for whom he is playing in our Betway charity bets this week. Jonesy, you'll have more on that later. Tom, I'm going to come to you momentarily for an update on the Fantasy Premier League. But what we've got coming up on the show today is we're going to that Wolves game even more, obviously. Moyes stayed at home. Alan Irvine took charge. Stuart Pearce was on the phone to him regularly in the stands. King Arthur is back and firing, and I am absolutely delighted to see that. So we'll talk about that. We'll go into the Betway charity bets. No winners again from either of us. Agonisingly close once again, but as we've already said, who saw a 4-0 win coming? So I think you can cut me and the boys some slack. We'll go into some headlines. Bit of a quiet week news-wise. Ryan Fredericks' injury. David Sullivan gave an interview to talkSPORT. Get some reaction from the boys on that. We'll do a transfer section again, same as last week. We obviously haven't signed anyone. No one's left either. We'll do a quick run through the random set of names that West Ham are being linked with and will likely never sign. We'll look ahead to the Everton game in the Carabao Cup briefly. That kicks off Wednesday night. We'll have Opposition View with Josh Jones, Sun Sport journalist and Leicester City fan, to look at the Premier League game that West Ham have on Sunday at the King Power Stadium. We'll go the Twitter poll where we've asked the We Are West Ham listeners what they thought. Sebastian Haller or Mikel Antonio to start up front against Leicester, or as some people have said, both of them. Name That Game is back. I'm the quizmaster this week. Jonesy, even with an impressive lead so far. Me and Tom got some ground to make up. And of course, we'll wrap up with the West Ham women's segment and international roundup for a lot of the girls who are in action and a really moving piece from the Squad Goals documentary from Captain Gilly Flaherty. So, loads to cover, as always, lads. Tom, I will go to you first before we dig into the Wolves game. Fantasy Premier League, we've touched on it so far in the show. Fans can still join that. I've had an average start. I'm on holiday, so I forgot to do it for the first time this season. That will be a pattern that I repeat. Left Aubameyang as captain for Liverpool away. Stinker. Somehow, I'm still beating the two of you. You are having a particularly bad time, Tom.
It's just not been my week, mate. I don't actually know if I am last out of us. I reckon it's close, but it's not been good, mate. It's not been good. 34 points this week. Obviously, as you do, you stick Cody in there, just expecting a little most guaranteed clean sheet of the weekend for Wolves. But West Ham have done him, so I'm delighted with that one, to be fair. But yeah, mate, Watkins, Mitrovic, they're all in it. I thought they'd get a bit of something in that game, but it's just not clicking for me at the minute. Zaha is pretty much a one-man team. Souček getting a goal ruled out didn't help either. Bloody hell.
Well, he still got an assist for it, to be fair, didn't he, Jones? That was quite a measured list of excuses for Tom there while he's having a stinker out on the podcast. You having a shocker again, but I made the mistake of taking the mickey out of you for a bad start last season. Back to bite me. However, you have played your wild card already.
Yeah, I'm on the back of 3 very, very consistently good seasons. One of which I ended up finishing like the top 6,000 in the world. So I don't know whether the start of this season has been maybe a little bit of cockiness for me. I don't know, but currently sitting with 137 points, an overall rank of just under 4 million. And I panicked going into game week 3 and played my wild card just to try and shoe on a City player in there at the very least, and picked the wrong City player in Raheem Sterling. Rubbish against Leicester. Brought Souček and Jimenez in. Obviously, that whole debacle over Jimenez's own goal and Souček having it ruled out completely messed me up. And I had Son as captain, which says all you need to know about how my season's going on fantasy football. But I'm notoriously a slow starter, and I'm sure I'll catch you both up soon.
Well, 137 points James is on. I'm on 171. Tom, I haven't got yours in front of me.
146. 146.
That does put Jonesy at the bottom, but just 8 points. Yeah, I think that's correct math. No, 9 points. 9 points in it between you two, and then I'm a little bit further ahead on 171. Not great stuff. Just a quick shout out. I know not everyone listening will do fantasy football, so we won't dwell on it too much each week. But at the moment, Rudy Eagling, with a team name Moyes Mavericks, is leading the We Are West Ham podcast fantasy league at the moment on an impressive 224 points. So fair play to Rudy. And if you want to join, use that code that we mentioned just now. But let's go to proper football. West Ham have won 4-0. It used to be my granddad's favourite bet every week when he'd go. And the only one I can really remember is the Marlon Harewood hat-trick home to Aston Villa back at Upton Park. What a game, what a performance, what a team. Are we going to finish in Europe, Tom Edwards?
Mate, don't get me started. Don't get the feels going. But no, what a performance. Exactly like you said, we did what Wolves have been brilliant at for the last 2 seasons to themselves. We just went out and then we beat them with physicality, direct in the month 3, and we just were clinical. Like we said last week, we were saying that we had that game against Arsenal if we just started to take chances or a bit more positive in certain areas. And that's exactly what we were. Bowen was brilliant. He took both his goals, really clever finishes, both of them, particularly the first. That's exactly what I sort of was saying that he's capable of. That first goal where he does drive in and he does what Yarmolenko's made a career out of, and he starts putting him in the net like he did at Hull. And it was a really positive day all round. Haller off the bench, nicking one. It was just brilliant, mate. And we outplayed him, and 4-0 it could have been more. And who would have thought that last weekend on the pod? I definitely didn't.
Well, funny you mention it, Tom, actually, because one of us did. One of us was full of, well, no, actually.
I thought we'd win, but 4-0 no.
I don't think we were going to beat Wolves. But that is my next note on the running order for tonight. I'm delighted to be able to throw it to James Jones, in fact. I'll read out exactly my note. Wolves, wow. Is everyone going to apologise to Will after he had to fight against the tide of negativity after the Arsenal performance? Jonesy, I will grant you that I did still predict a West Ham defeat, I believe.
I predicted a win as well. Remember that.
Yeah, I think I went with a draw. However, I was trying to take some positives from the Arsenal performance last week. you two were not having it at all, are you willing to issue a written apology, just verbal, or how do you want to go about righting the wrongs?
No apology from me, mate. No, because as we've already said, it could all go terribly, terribly wrong. But this time next week, and we could be back to where we started this season. But yeah, I mean, fair play. You were positive. Yeah, better than Tom and I last week. But no, it's yeah. I still, as I said before, I can't believe it, and it does seem as though we've fallen on. Moyes has stumbled across a formation that might just work this season, given the squad he's got. I think he may have realised that we're not going to be able to strengthen as much as he could do. But that 5 at the back seems to be working a treat. Obviously, 2 really, really good performances. Only 3 points though, which is annoying. I'm going to just rule that one in a little bit, but we could have had a point at least at Arsenal. And to go to Arsenal and lose in the last 3 or 4 minutes. Is still pretty good given the performance we put in, and then to follow that up with Sunday's result and performance even better, and the fact that David Moyes weren't even in the stadium, he was sitting at home watching it on Zoom or whatever, chatting to Piercy on the phone. It makes it even more bizarre that we even managed to put some sort of evening like that on when the manager wasn't even there. But yeah, it seems as though something's beginning to happen, but we've got to strengthen between now and Monday, the transfer window closing. Otherwise, we can't count on 5 at the back all season, particularly with Ryan Fredericks and his glass legs. But yeah, I keep the negativity keeps coming back to me.
It wants to creep out.
It keeps biting at me, but no, I'm going to try and stay positive from moving forward.
Excellent. Well, what I did like to see was the return of the landline. Stuart Pearce with a recorded phone. And I'm just imagining Moisey at home. He doesn't strike me as the sort of bloke to mess around with cordless phones, does he? I'm still imagining proper old school 90s, one of those ones, like the cable, but
he's got a built-in fax machine. Built-in fax machine, just in case.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, big numbers on the keypad, just so you can see if his eyes go. Yeah, proper. Now, Jonesy, you mentioned there, as everyone who is a long-time listener to the We Are West Ham podcast will know, I'm not one to gloat about things, and if I'm ever right, I don't like to bring it up or mention it again. You mentioned that David Moyes has stumbled across that formation, the 5 at the back with Arthur Masuaku, who was outstanding at the weekend. I'd just like to play you this clip quickly, and everyone at home will be able to listen as well, from a few weeks back before the season started.
Fair enough. Well, listen, what about this? Just to shake things up a bit. And I genuinely do think I would not be disappointed if this was the way Moyes lined up at all. 5 at the back, like I said. And then I think you put Masuaku in there because I think that's where his best position is. I think he works best. He's played his best football at West Ham as a left wing back, and he's posted a load of photos on his Instagram over the summer of him working hard when everyone else was on holiday. So that basically means he's going to be absolutely outstanding next season. No, but I have James, I don't know if you know that's actually the rules. When footballers post videos of themselves working hard in the gym over the summer, that means they're going to be really good next year.
Right. Oh, right.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't realise you didn't know that, but that is how it works.
So, yeah, I mean, there it is. You say Moyes has stumbled across the formation, Jonesy. We've had Declan Rice, we're pretty sure, listens to the podcast. We think Jared Bowen listens to the podcast as well. It's become apparent that at least one of David Moyes' coaching staff, be it Alan Irvine or Stuart Pearce or Kevin Nolan, listen to the pod, but maybe Moyes himself, and he's just heard what I've got to say. 5 at the back, ask for Masuaku and Ryan Fredericks, no problem at all. That's all you've got to do.
Right, you make a good point, mate. I think I'm beginning to wonder whether it was actually you on the other end of the phone the other night talking to Stuart Pearce, because you just seem to get everything right. Are you David Moyes in disguise?
He wouldn't wear a shirt like this. No chance.
Definitely not. No.
He'd pull it off.
Tom, Moyes stayed at home, obviously. He was having some impact on the game, albeit through the phone. Issa Diop didn't play either. I'm struggling to think of who we missed least, to be honest. Everyone, Diop certainly our best defender the season before last. left a lot to be desired last year. Didn't miss him at all, really. I do think I do think the formation obviously helps with that, because playing 5 at the back takes the defensive responsibility off of everyone. That position suits Cresswell. But didn't really. Did you think it affected the team at all? Without, or who do you think it affected? Like, what affected us more? Is it Diop missing or Moyes?
I think neither. I honestly nothing. I think Moyes had done his work in the week. Presumably, it's obviously him who picks the team. It's him who gets the tactics out there. You have 15 minutes before they go out, 15 minutes at half time. It's a tough job to actually impact the game once you've thrown out a system and players to do that. Only the very best in the business do that. And he obviously did the hard work in the week. So I think Moyes was, as much as he wasn't there, and it's obviously comical he was on the phone, he's done a good job this week. As for Diop, I think for the last 6 months, he's been a bit of a liability. He tends to dive in, he gets caught high up the pitch, and he's had a bad 6 months of football. He is obviously a supremely talented centre-half. There's a reason why Mourinho said what he said about him, but he's had a tough 6 months. Sometimes it's good to be out the side, and I think that Balbuena surprised me, came in, dealt with the pace. I think, like you say, he had more cover. Cresswell was on the ball pretty good in that position. He can open up a bit more. He gives it in good positions to midfielders, and seemed to suit us. But Diop will get back in that side for sure. It's just we need the best Diop, because he's been off the ball for the last 6 months.
Yeah, Jonesy, you mentioned there, go back to a 4. Would you be really adverse to staying as a 5 all season? Because I certainly wouldn't. I think we've got the attacking players they almost don't need the extra man with them. I think they're good enough to create spaces like that, especially with the wingers or the wing backs bombing on. I don't know. You time until we go back, but why would you go back? Even if we bring another centre half in, why would you revert back to a system that suited Moyes well in his first spell at the club, and appears to be doing so again?
I mean, I think Souček and the way that Souček plays in that midfield probably allows for us to play that system more than probably we could do. I mean, because he gets up and down quite easily. It means that we don't need that extra man in midfield, because he can get about the midfield a little bit easier. I wouldn't be that adverse to seeing us play the whole season. It's just I don't know whether we've got the squad depth in defence for it to work all season. This next week is going to be very, very important for us to be able to bring those players in. We're 1 or 2 injuries away in defence for us having to go back to what wasn't working before. But it seems to be working. The player seems to be buying into it, and long may that continue. And if it's going to continue working, even if it means that we're not going to beat everyone 4-0 every week, but if it's just going to add a little bit of stability, and we're creating chances in that system. As long as we're creating chances, goals are going to come, and then we're going to get points on the board. Absolutely.
And it was a fantastic performance from one of my favourite West Ham players at the moment, if not the favourite, King Arthur Masuaku. And one thing that I thought was hilarious, I'd like to launch an investigation among the We Are West Ham listeners and watchers of the podcast and the show on YouTube, because the King Arthur tag that that me in particular, that then we've been using on the We Are West Ham podcast, first surfaced as a title to one of our podcasts in the middle of 2019. But me and my friends, among my friendship group, have been calling him King Arthur for as long as I can remember. And I checked on my phone history to see the first mention of King Arthur and when it was amongst my friend group. And me and my friend, Quizmaster Reese, in fact, me and him were the first ones to mention it. And it was December 2017 in a WhatsApp group, talking about how much we love King Arthur Masuaku. So I'd like to launch an investigation, because both Arthur Masuaku himself and now the West Ham official Twitter account are using the hashtag King Arthur in their tweets. It was a great sort of moment, if you like, for me and my mates. But just before we take all the glory for it, we've obviously pumped it as well on We Are West Ham. Masuaku's interacted with a few of our tweets that have been tagged as King Arthur, and he's got in on the hype as well. But I just want to see if there's anyone listening at the moment or watching who has called Arthur Masuaku King Arthur among their friendship group as well. And if they can find any evidence proving that they used the term before December 2017, to email it to wearewesthampod@gmail.com or tweet us the proof at weare_West Ham, because I don't think there's too much more or much more important things that people can be spending their time on at the moment to find out who was the first one to come up with the phrase King Arthur Masuaku, because that certainly was a performance fit for a royal, as I'm sure you'll agree. James, it really pains you I know we'll wrap up this first segment really swiftly, but you hate it, don't you? You just hate King Arthur doing well.
No, I don't. No, I love it. I do love it. The whole King Arthur thing, just I think it proves that the entire squad listened to the podcast on the team bus on the way to games. Because Jared Bowen's reacted to what Tom was saying about him last week with 2 goals. Masuaku's interacted with us in the past, and suddenly King Arthur's now a trending topic. It has to be us. They listen to us in the change rooms or on the bus, and they're taking all of your advice. We're on board at least.
Yeah, I mean, obviously shout out to the whole squad, but in particular, I think tip of the hat to King Arthur. But stick with us because we'll cover loads more fantastic performance from Masuaku at the weekend. We'll cover the Betway charity bets next. No winners again, but long live the King. So me and the lads remain loyal subjects of King Arthur Masuaku. One thing, though, this week, we had the Betway charity bets. West Ham winning 4-0 was positive for most who support West Ham up and down the country, all across the world, of course, same as everyone who listens to the We Are West Ham podcast, no doubt. However, me, James and I, on our new segment, we've partnered up, and Tom, of course, have partnered up this season with Betway for a fun little segment as part of the show and raising money for some West Ham related charities. Betway kindly donating a £50 stake, or giving us a £50 stake to bet on the West Ham game each week. 3 selections me and the lads pick, and any winnings at the end of the season go to we've all chosen to play for. I'm playing for the Bobby Moore Fund. Tom, of course, is playing for Isla's Fight, and James is playing for DT38, the Dylan Tom Beady's Foundation. No winners still from last week. Jonesy, you've got some stuff to tell us about DT38 later on. Before we do that, let's just cover what happened again. It was agonisingly close again. No one saw the 4-0 coming, and that has reflected in our bets as well. Jonesy, last week you had both teams to score over 1.5 goals and over 4.5 West Ham corners. I had over 1.5 goals, over 5.5 total corners, and over 0.5 bookings for each team. Tom had West Ham to win, both teams to score, and Ryan Fredericks to be carded. Both close in our own way. Jonesy, me and you getting stumped on the corners. There was a surprisingly low amount. The week before against Arsenal, I think there was something like 9 in the game. So I thought, I'll go nice and safe. That's a shoo-in. I think the game finished 4 corners or something in total.
Yeah.
Not impressive. You obviously didn't get the both teams to score. You got the over 1.5 goals, and you didn't get over 4.5 West Ham corners. So you missed out on 2. I got the over 1.5 goals, didn't get the over 5.5 corners or the over 0.5 bookings each team. Wolves got one semi-early, so I thought, happy days. Ryan Fredericks, as Tom bet for as well, to get booked. I thought, that's an absolute shoo-in. No way we don't get a yellow here. Here comes the money, and it just didn't play out like that at all. Tom, I thought you were mental having West Ham to win last week. That proved right. Both teams to score. As Jones, you had, I don't think any. I think if you'd have said before that's not going to win, we'd have said it's because West Ham.
Exactly.
Ryan Fredericks to be carded. A little bit unlucky last week, lads. I think we all went on the cautious side a little bit. Jonesy, were you sort of surprised to see how it played out in the end?
Yeah, I mean, to be 1 Wolves goal and 1 corner away from winning some money for DT38 was pretty gutting, especially given that I think my one was so safe it was 3-1. Yours was even safe. Yours was evens.
It was even.
I mean, I was
this
like,
is-
surely we're gonna have some money in the bank here, but fine margins, isn't it? And talking to Chad earlier, and he's urging for us to Chad at Betway, urging for us to go for the bigger ones, which Tom's been doing every single week. It was a 16-1 last week, Tom, and just as close as Will and I were in the end. So yeah, I think we're gonna have to, we've gone a little bit bigger this week, but that's so desperate just to get that first win.
Yeah.
And it's playing on my mind a lot. Like we're 3 weeks in. I've designed that league table which totals up the winnings every week. We can't even put that out yet because it's embarrassing. That's just sort of sitting collecting dust on my external hard drive in my drawer. So hopefully people will be able to see that soon.
Tom, Ryan Fredericks obviously came off injured. He's got a hamstring injury. Looks like he's going to be out until after the international break. You were sort of banking on him getting a yellow. This week, you've gone both teams to score again. This for the Leicester game on Sunday. You've gone both teams to score again, over 2.5 goals and over 2.5 cards. Are you sort of a little bit more confident about that? Leicester are pretty free flying at the moment.
I can't lie, lads. When we went 2-0, 3-0 up, I was thinking, and Fredericks was on, I was thinking I've got a real chance here, because the chances of them nicking one and making it nervy at the end's pretty likely, if not definitely happening. And then Fredericks was getting run around. By the end, he was absolutely knackered. You can tell he was going to dive in, and I just thought 48th minute, and then he's hooked, and I thought, bloody hell, here we go. This week, mate, there's always goals and there's always cards in the games you play against them. There always seems to be a penalty here. Something going on. Vardy tends to get in a bit of trouble with Ogbonna. They've had a few battles down the years, so I'm hopeful. I think I played it a little bit more safe this week, but like you say, lads, we just want that first one, and then we laugh them.
Exactly. I don't want to have to, when that board goes live with the first money on it, I don't want it to have a zero against my name. That's for sure. So, Tom, you've gone both teams to score over 2.5 goals and over 2.5 cards total in the game. You'd hope that was a shoo-in if the odds aren't that big. Jonesy, Jared Bowen, 2 shots on target, over 2.5 total goals, and both teams to score. You're sticking on the Jared Bowen hype?
Yeah, I was looking at his attacking stats for the last 3 games, and I think he averages 3 shots a game. Weirdly enough, he's only 2 on target this season were those 2 goals. But I think as we were saying last week, he just needed that confidence. And I think getting those 2 goals will give him some confidence away at Leicester and moving forward. So I fancy him to continue the form and at least get a couple on target.
Yeah, well, Leicester are banging them in. So are we, apparently. So I've gone for over 2.5 goals, over 0.5 goals in each half, and less than 5.5 total bookings. I can't see people throwing themselves around and getting smashed up this weekend. I hope not to be proved wrong, but I'm just think pretty safe-ish again with that. And yeah, just fingers crossed one of us can get a little bit of money. Jonesy, you spoke to Dylan Tombidi's mum, Tracy, at the beginning of the season to tell her about the scheme. I hope you haven't updated her with the fact that we haven't actually won any money for the charities yet, but we will do. There's still 35 weeks to go, so not worried on that front. But yeah, you was chatting to her about some of the fundraising schemes they do over at DT38 as well.
Yeah, I spoke to Tracy a few weeks back just to sort of introduce myself and let her know what I was doing and what we were doing as a podcast for our charities, and I'd chosen DT38 as my nominated charity, and I'd said that I wouldn't just help raise money, but also sort of raise awareness of the importance of men checking their testicles regularly, because it is a deadly disease, particularly if you don't catch it in time. So yeah, it's just that they do a thing, DT38, the first of every month. They urge people to put their message out there and sort of urge people and men to check their testicles on the first of every month. And as this is the last one before the 1st of October, it was a good time to do that. And the key thing to remember with Dylan's story is that he went to the doctor. And the doctor said, "Oh no, it's nothing. Don't worry about it." And then 3-4 weeks later, he was away with Australia at the World Cup and failed a drugs test, and they said it's either you've taken an illegal substance or you've got a tumour. And obviously it was the tumour, and that's when he was diagnosed. But that 3 or 4 week gap between being misdiagnosed and then eventually being diagnosed was essentially what eventually he sort of fell to. So timing is very, very important with this, and it's important that men check first every month. Put it in your diaries, check yourself in the shower whenever you feel comfortable, and if you do find something unusual, then get it checked out, and even go for a second opinion, because it is important. So yeah, make sure you do that. And DT38, they're asking for just small donations, £3.80 is all they're asking for. Obviously, if you can do more, then fine. But obviously, at the moment, with the current climate, finances might not be, people might not be as flush as they used to be. But all they're asking is £3.80. So visit their site, dt38.co.uk, and give what you can. It does mean a lot, and I'll be spreading the word throughout the season while I try and raise some money as well, hopefully, anyway. So yeah, on the 1st, get yourself checked, lads.
Excellent. So that's if you can't find it online, it's DT38. Just search DT38 Foundation on Google. It's funny you say that, James. In the sort of spirit of what the message you're trying to get out. I've done it before. I sort of make a habit of checking anyway. I found something like a growth before, went and had the scan. It's one of those things where you'd rather not have it done, but ultimately you sort of pull your shorts down a bit, flop them out, do a little ultrasound. And yeah, I was lucky. Obviously, they told me it was just a harmless cyst or whatever, and that not to worry about it. But far better to check. I was a little bit concerned beforehand, but you go, they sort it out. And it's always, with any of those things, better to know one way or the other, isn't it? So great message. And like you say, hopefully we can carry on or start perhaps raising some money for the good causes. Tom for Isla's Fight, me for Bobby Moore Fund, and James for DT38. You can, of course, go and back our selections on the Betway website and app under the Bet Your Way, Build Your Own Bet section of the Betway website. Our bets for the Leicester game will go up around Friday night. So hopefully money on the board soon for me and the lads. Stay with us, because we'll chat the headlines of the week next. Ryan Fredericks, hamstring injury, out until the end of October, at least by the looks of it. David Sullivan, and the interview he gave once again to talkSPORT, and the rapidly becoming laughable segment that we do on the We Are West Ham podcast is the transfers. Stay with us for all of that next. You are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. Great work and a great message from Jonesy there about the DT38, Dylan Tombides Foundation, who Jonesy is trying to earn some money for this season on the Betway charity bets. However, headlines of the week, lads, other than winning 4-0, which is probably the biggest and most surprising news, or the most surprising thing that happened to West Ham. It's been a fairly quiet week. Obviously, it's transfer season, so it's West Ham, so obviously it's going to be quiet. Ryan Fredericks, he pulled up in the Wolves game fairly early on, and the club have confirmed he's got a hamstring injury and is likely to be out until after the October international break. It seems a shame, given the new system that Moyes has been playing recently. Do you, Tom, sort of gutted that he's going to be out because he has been better? Or do you think, it might be a chance for perhaps Ben Johnson to come in, or Ashby, who played in the Cup the other night, to come in and stamp their mark on the team?
I think it's one of those, like you say, he's definitely been a marked improvement since we've switched that 5 and he's playing as a wing back. And for me, he made that position his own, and rightly so. He should have been the starting right back because his performances recently. However, I do think Johnson's got potential. He's brilliant at the end of last season. I don't think there's a massive step down, shall we say, in ability between the two. And I think Johnson's probably got the highest ceiling. So it's not one of those I think is going to massively impact us and cause us massive dramas over the next couple of weeks, because it's only the game he's out for anyway in the league, isn't he? Only missed about 2 games because of the international break. Was at a nice time for him. So should be all right, and maybe actually will force the board. It's another reason to go out, look at fullbacks, and potentially get a utility fullback who can play both positions, because they're trying to penny pinch, and at least we can fill both slots in a way. And I think it might actually force us to go out and actually put some money on a fullback in one way or another.
Jonesy, sort of buy into what Tom's saying there, or do you think that if nothing else made the club go out and spend money, why should this?
I think we have to. It kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about, we're 1 or 2 injuries away from having to revert back to our old formation that wasn't really working. We need cover in those positions if we're going to play this system for the rest of the season. And with one right back fit and is relatively inexperienced, and this isn't Fredericks might come back for 3 or 4 weeks and get injured again. His injury record at the club is pretty poor. So we need to go out and in the next week, 6 days, and bring in 1 or 2 players who can play in that position, or as Tom said, someone as a utility fullback that can play either side. But the trouble is they're very rare. So they've got to spend some money. They've got to bring someone in, even if it's a loan, just some cover, because otherwise, for another Frederick. Yeah, exactly. And Ben Johnson, I like him. He looks really promising, but he's inexperienced, and we can't rely on him to step in and have an amazing season and save the day for the next 35, 36 games. We just can't be unfair on him to do that. We need to bring in a bit more experience and a bit more stability in those positions. So, as we know, the squad are listening. David Sullivan's probably listening as well. So, Dave, sign someone, please. Just anyone.
I've heard Watford's right back, I can't remember his name, Ngaki or something. Apparently he looks really tidy. Perhaps we could bring him in.
Oh, don't.
Who'd have thought it, hey?
He'd want at least 20 grand a week, wouldn't he? So
peanuts, isn't it?
No-brainer. Yeah, absolute no-brainer. So you mentioned David Sullivan there, Jonesy, and he gave an interview this week to Jim White on talkSPORT. It's widely sort of accepted or widely assumed, shall we say, that Jim White and David Sullivan are in fairly regular contact. Jim White in recent weeks has come out with a couple of stories on talkSPORT, on his talkSPORT show mid-morning, saying that, he's from a source close to the board, and that they feel like they've been hung out to dry. A couple of occasions he has said that he's been in direct contact with one of the owners. So it's generally assumed that it is David Sullivan. The interview he gave this week, nothing really that new, really. The headlines saying that he can't sign anyone, that David Moyes doesn't want him to sign. He said he'd done that with the previous regime, as he's taken to calling them, Manuel Pellegrini and Huselos, saying that he bought Fabianski and Diop without them knowing. What else? What did you make of the interview? Really, just sort of saying much of the usual stuff.
I don't think he said anything that surprised us. Really, I think I think a lot of us would have preferred him just not to speak at all, given the general.
Do you think that though?
Yeah, I think the general feeling amongst the fan base, and there is this an acceptance, or at least an assumption that he's not going to deliver any more players between now and Monday night, and for him to then come out and say, well, we might not sign anyone. We're trying to get 2 or 3 in, but it might not even happen. Kind of told us everything that we kind of already knew. Nothing groundbreaking. I think the only thing that stood out was that he half moaned that it was going to cost 50 grand to go up to Everton and play in the cup, and it was like, well, I mean, why did you even say that? Like, it was just a ridiculous comment, which everyone picked up on it, and it didn't do him any favours, is what I'm saying. Him doing that interview didn't do him any favours. It didn't strengthen the perception that fans have of him or the rest of the board, and he didn't say anything to really reassure the fans that everything's okay, everything's under control, we're going to be okay, we're going to sign X, Y, and Z or whatever. Which is why I and I'm sure a lot of other fans would have just rather him just not come on and done that interview. I think it did him more harm than good, in the eyes of the fans, really, even though he didn't really say anything that we all kind of already didn't know.
Okay, Tom, I will throw to you in a sec, but Jonesy, I just want to ask you one thing then. Is he not damned if he does and damned if he doesn't? Because he gets loads of stick. Him in particular, I think the general feeling among fans is that although it's GSB out is the movement, I think a lot of the anger is directed towards Sullivan and then Brady and then Gold in that order. I think it would be fair to say that. As far as coming out and speaking, I think fans get annoyed because every time he goes on talkSPORT, it's either, or in the times he has in recent memory, it's been with either Ian Abrahams or Jim White. And there's a sense among fans that they both are, not friends, but you know what I mean, like professional contacts, and that Sullivan gets an easy ride. Or David Gold did an interview with Moose earlier this year, and the feeling after that, and the same again, I think from Jim White, is that he gets an easy ride. Now, to play devil's advocate here, do you think it is a bit damned if he does, damned if he doesn't? Or what do you think he would get more respect if he was to come on to a platform like ours and do an interview of that kind with the three of us, for example, as opposed to talkSPORT, where there is that feeling among fans, especially, that he is just, he's got that positive, good relationship with Jim White and the Moose as well, and that he's going to get that easier ride. Because I just think, is it damned if he does and damned if he doesn't, as far as coming out to speak goes?
I disagree, because we have the most vocal chairman in England, probably, give or take one or two chairmen down in the lower leagues.
Yeah.
Definitely in the Premier League.
Sorry, the Premier League for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and that, I think that's one thing that gets a lot of fans' backs up, is that the only time he ever comes out and speaks is when it's with the likes of Jim White or Ian Abrahams on talkSPORT. Two broadcasters that have never criticised David Sullivan, Gold or Brady for what the fans criticise them for, and what they have done over the last few years particularly. You won't find Jim White criticising David Sullivan. That's why David Sullivan will go on and do an interview with Jim White, because he knows he'll get the easy ride, the easy interview. He won't be pressured into answering difficult questions, the questions that the fans want answered. And yeah, you're right. He would get a hell of a lot more respect if he came onto a fans forum, like a podcast like this. I know that, I think West Ham Fan TV have asked him numerous times to go on, and he's declined every time, I'm led to believe. So, and there's probably more other podcasts that have done the exact same thing, and he's declined because he knows he'll get pressured. And I think that's why he's better off just not doing these interviews with talkSPORT, because he's not going to say anything that's going to go anywhere near repairing the reputation in the eyes of the fans. He's better off just staying away from the limelight, not doing these interviews if you're not going to do it with fans or other broadcasters, and just get on with the job in hand, and that's signing some players and fixing West Ham United. So yeah, that's the way I see it, and I'm sure I know I'm not alone in that thought. I just think you say he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Well, yeah, but when you're coming on and just saying stuff for the sake of saying stuff, what does it achieve, really? What does it achieve?
Well, that was my next point, and I'll throw this to you, Tom, because Jonesy, you said there, and you started all of that with the assumption that any of David Sullivan's thinking when he goes and gives interviews like that is to appease fans. Tom, what do you think? Because I don't think that's true, because he, like you say, he knows what the reaction will be. He knows fans will kick back and say, why don't you field fans from a fan group rather than someone who's perceived to be a good or a close contact of his. I don't think that the reason for those interviews can be to appease fans or to get a message to fans. Tom, what's your take on the whole thing?
Yeah.
Because it confuses me, really. I'm sort of a bit stuck in between. I don't begrudge Jim White or Moose, who, it's worth remembering Moose has got a column in the programme. That will be, whether it's a paid one, I'm not sure, but it could be an income, or it's certainly proof of a relationship with the club. And journalists have to have those. You can't, the Sky Sports News and talkSPORT wouldn't be the organisations they are, with the listeners and the viewers in the millions, if they didn't have positive relationships with clubs to get, it is a give and take process. So what do you make of those interviews, Tom? Because I think, although James says it might not go the way he'd like, if he was to come on the We Are West Ham podcast, for example, or any fan forum, as James mentioned, there, at least with some measured but deliberate and structured questions, he might at least, whether the answers were what fans would like, he might at least garner a little bit more respect for at least fronting up, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when he goes on these big platforms, I'm a believer like Jonesy, and I think the reason he does it is for selfish reasons, mate. I think it's to do with the fact that he often comes and does it when he's just been on the back of poor press the weeks or months before, and he's doing it to save his face and put over a sort of image to these broadcasters and sort of lend his olive branch to sort of show that he'll give him big material and he'll give him big sound bites and sort of don't oust him, give him that respect. As in, for him, it's easy to go, look, we'll give you this massive thing, which can draw over 3-4 days of massive news off you as your platform, and it's from you, and will make you a lot of money or get whatever it is that comes in for them. So I think he's doing it to keep a relationship there in order for him to have a bit of saving of face in the press. And then secondly, about his actual interview, I thought it wasn't as bad as we've seen him. It wasn't as bad as we've seen him, but each time he comes on, he just doesn't come across as a particularly professional football man who is going to take a club to where a club like West Ham should be, and that his head's in the right space. And he says things like, but the last regime's transfer window and transfer strategy was terrible. And then in the same sentence, he says, we've got a brilliant starting three in the cup last night. Here are all outstanding footballers. Anson, Haller, Yarmolenko, all brought in by Pellegrini. He says depressed a few days before a Premier League game. He says that he's depressed about the transfer window. And you've got a whole club listening to that. You've got a whole fan base listening to that. That's not helping anyone in any aspect. But I think it's mainly selfish reasons. But I think this is probably one of the few interviews I've heard him do where I really can't have anything too serious or too much of a problem, because he's obviously not all bad. He's obviously got his reasons for doing it, but it just made no sense. As in, it just feels like a pointless venture for him to do without giving us anything. It's not like he had a big news story or a big signing or a big announcement about the stadium. It was just for his personal reasons to get a bit of airtime for whatever reason that he wanted, and we don't actually know because it felt like it was purposeless.
Yeah, the woe be me line does confuse me somewhat.
Yeah.
Just, I think with statements like that, it just seems to, I don't know, alienate him to the fans even more. Not that he's bothered about that, to be honest. I don't think, but I don't think you can log on to Twitter. I know Twitter's not the place to go to for your gauge, but there's the amount of the fans marching in the thousands earlier in the year. That doesn't come from nowhere, does it? These things are real, and it's easy to type something on Twitter. But where it gets to the stage where that many people are actually taking physical action and going on a march like that, that hasn't even been seen at Newcastle in those sort of numbers, is it? We're widely considered to be the most unhappy with the board. And I just find it confusing that, like you say, because it's not the first time, every time it comes out, it's like, it makes me really depressed. It's like, what on earth are you talking about? What on earth are you talking about? Like, you are the one with all the cards in your hand, and you can play them however you like. You've got the money, the decision-making power, the majority of the shares, which means that you can make all the decisions. You have all the cards in your hands. Every other club in the Premier League is going out. And he mentioned we're not a monarchy. We're not Qatar or Manchester City or whatever. Fine. Then, as Trevor Sinclair recently said, surely it makes sense then to sell it to someone who is. If I had promised you, and think of the world-class football in a world-class stadium statement here, if I had promised to do something for you, James, in return for something else with the best intentions in my heart, and you'd held up your end of the bargain for me, and I was trying my best, my very best, and after a while you were getting irate with me and saying, mate, I need that thing you've promised me, and I had realised that I could no longer do it, by a feeling of honour that I had to our original agreement because of my relationship with you as a bloke, or as you'd hope, the relationship with the owners to the fans. But on the virtue of that honour, I would say to you, James, I'm really sorry. I can't provide that, but I'm going to do my best. And here is someone who can. So you are getting the bit that I promised you, because although I might not be able to provide it, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. And it goes against everything. The whole of our society is built upon trading, isn't it? We trade money for things every day of our lives, be it for a coffee in the morning or for a mortgage or whatever it is. You go into Starbucks and you give them your £3.50 and ask for a latte, and they say, yeah, no problem. If you wait 5 minutes for your latte, then you start going, well, where's it gone? If it's 15 minutes, you say, you promised me a latte 15 minutes ago. And then all of a sudden you notice they haven't even bought the coffee machine to be able to make the latte. You'd start kicking off and going, hang on a minute, I want my money back. That's how the whole of society works, on people giving and like something and getting something in return. It was leave your spiritual home where you've all loved going, for generations of your families have loved going. In return for that, the team on the pitch will no longer be cruddy, scrapping for relegation one. Everyone was kind of dragged into that agreement anyway. Whether or not fans were willing to do it and willing to go into it with an open eyes and an open mind is that's gone anyway. I'm not certain that fans did go into it with that. And the situation we are now, it baffles me. The most baffling thing of all of it is that the owners are clearly in a position, as they're openly saying now, you know, we haven't got this money. So, but surely you feel some sort of sense of guilt for the original promise and what you've done to fans, and some sort of sense of responsibility to pass the club on to someone else who can. Because interviews like that, it's just insulting to people.
I genuinely believe, I agree with that. I genuinely believe that, I think David Sullivan still believes that he can deliver that promise.
How, mate? How?
Well, everyone knows that it's quite obvious, 4 or 5 years down the line, that he's not going to be able to do that. But I genuinely believe that he still believes that he can deliver that promise of a world-class team and a world-class stadium. And I think, you know, the reality is that he can't and he won't. And Trevor Sinclair was right. And as you just said with that great Starbucks analogy, like, it's time for him to accept that he can't deliver that promise. I don't doubt his intentions were right at the time, and the board and the club's intentions at the time to get fans on side for that move weren't right. I don't think it was a stone cold lie. I don't believe it was a lie. But they have to now accept that it's not going to happen under their stewardship. They're not going to be able to deliver that promise, and it is time to hand the club over to someone or a group of people that are able to give fans what was initially promised. Because they say they're fans themselves. Well, like, come on, like, you then should know how we feel as a group of fans about what we've been promised and not been delivered. But I'm sure more and more that's going to come over the next year or two. But yeah, I just don't know what else to say about it. And we could go around in circles, couldn't we? Really?
Yeah, you know what I think, mate. I just think it must to put yourself in his shoes for a bit. If you're in that position, you know, he's got lots of money, and people sort of think, oh, because he's got lots of money, that stops your problems in your life or whatever. And for most people who've got lots of money will tell you that that's not true. Money and fame don't solve a lot of your problems. And it must be one of the most impossible admissions of failure to make. If you make a failure in your business, your day-to-day business, whether you're in construction or like gold in with Ann Summers or whatever, if you make a business decision like that and you don't sell as many pairs of knickers that month, or you don't build as many houses or whatever, then that sort of, even that, people will struggle, their egos will struggle to accept that. But if you're a West Ham fan and you finally got to a stage in life through other means where you had enough money to buy your boyhood football club and be the one in control, it must be almost impossible to admit that you not only sort of cocked it up, but whether you agree that it's right or not, you have left the vast majority or a majority or a large part, let me refine that once more, a large percentage of the fan base who just resent you for what you've done and changing their life. That must be an impossible thing. And I think even now, if they were just to go, look, we are so sorry, we have stuffed up. It was really impossible to admit it. We'll pass it on. We're sorry, we can't do anything else. We'll pass it on, and we really hope that the future is going to be better. That's what I would hope for. I did not expect to have this little detour onto this topic, I'm afraid, lads, but obviously just a topic that we are all pretty passionate about on the ownership side of things. The transfer rumours, we'll cover that briefly next, and a quick look ahead to Everton in the Carabao Cup. So that was a bit of a long-winded, emotional detour, I think, for We Are West Ham. We plan to only touch on that David Sullivan interview briefly, but as ever with me and the lads, these things mean a lot to us, and it's easy to delve into these topics a little bit more than we sometimes intend to. But Tom, with the one topic which we won't have to spend too much time on is the West Ham transfer segment. We've had the usual amount of rumours of players, ranging from players I have heard of, players I've never heard of, and players I've heard of but would not be at all excited about them coming to West Ham. I know you've got a couple. I think Leicester have made a signing in the last few hours which could impact on us.
Yes, well, mate, there's Wesley Fofana, the young lad from St Etienne, centre-half, who's a 19-year-old, very talented centre-half. It looks like Leicester have agreed a fee with them, with St Etienne, around 36 million and a bit in bonuses, which isn't too dissimilar to the deal we proposed at the back end of last week. But obviously there's other things in play, but I guess it's also a show of where we are in the market and how desirable we are for some players, because that one's gone through and looks to have been wrapped up, or is being wrapped up as we speak. Other than that, I've seen Jonathan Tah was linked with us. He'd be a great signing, a loan to permanent, the Bayer Leverkusen centre-half, who's got 10 caps for Germany, and he's only 24, really good age. And apparently it's a loan to View we're looking at, but seems like any centre-half who's over 6'2" and plays in Germany or Italy is on our radar at the minute. So I think it's one of those weeks, lads, where it's going to get down to the deadline, and as long as we got someone, we'll be happy.
Yeah, well, I've got Montpellier striker Gaëtan Laborde. I've read that in 2 or 3 different places today. That one, again, sort of very early stages rumour, nothing concrete. Apparently, we've had a loan deal for Chris Smalling rejected because he wants to stick in Italy next season. We're supposed to have opened talks with Napoli for their defender, Nikola Maksimovic, centre-half, I think, and we're considering a bid for Rangers captain and right-back James Tavernier. I mean, unless he's Kieran Tierney level, anyone coming down from the SPL, knowing it for me, I've never really been that buzzing about transfers. I've always been excited about it once they've signed on the dotted line and holding their shirt up like this. So it's hard for me to get excited in a normal transfer window when it looks like we're actually spending money. In one of these, I struggle to give much credence to any of these. Jonesy, Joe Rodon as well, from Swansea. I think some news about him.
Yeah, Joe Rodon at Swansea. He's got a lot of promise, quite highly rated down there, but also very injury prone, which kind of fits our transfer strategy, doesn't it, from years gone by. So, yeah, you never know. But if he can stay fit, then that would be quite a good signing, I think. James Tavernier, actually a good signing. I think it'd be quite a good signing for us if we can do that deal. But the others I don't know a great deal about. Never heard of Laborde. But yeah, I think we get, judging by the names that we're linked with, it does feel as though we're beginning to scrape the barrel a little bit, getting a little bit desperate in these last 6 or 7 days, and it's going to be an interesting deadline day. I think although there's a lot of doubt over whether we will do any deals, I reckon deadline day we'll probably see 2 or 3 new faces, all on loan deals, maybe a view to buy like Souček was. And if they can come with the same quality as Souček, then I wouldn't mind. But it does seem as though we're beginning to get a little bit desperate, scrape the barrel.
I must admit, fair play to Joe Roden as well at Swansea, playing for Swansea and signing a £100 million podcast deal with Spotify recently. I've got a lot of time for that. Fair play to him. I don't know how you manage playing football in Wales with still doing a podcast, the most successful podcast in the world out in California. So I'm glad you got that one, Tom, because I was a little bit fearful that might go over both of your heads. Anyone listening at home, just Google Joe Rogan podcast and you know what I'm talking about. He's almost as big as we are West Ham. Our £100 million deal with Spotify is in the offing any day now. I think Declan Rice is the only potential outgoing, lads. I've just written snore off on the running order because it's just a load of usual stuff. It's just wait and see, isn't it? If Chelsea are going to come in with a big bid at the end of the window, then we wait and see how we get on. Whether they will or not, it's just speculation. From our point of view now, I'm not particularly concerned. It seems to me like he's certainly not playing like a man who's had his head turned. I thought he was really good the other night against Wolves. My feeling deep down is that we'll be able to hold on to him at least until January. Don't know if you two feel the same, Tom?
Yeah, I think he'll be here with all the noises coming out from the camp after the win on Sunday. Alvin come out, obviously said he's not going to go anywhere, and like you said, he says, look at him, he looks like a player who still wants to be here and that his head's in the game here. And I think Jacob Steinberg did an article today saying that there's no chance. West Ham is saying that there's absolutely zero chance it'll be moved on this window, and I think Chelsea are starting to look elsewhere, fingers crossed. But yeah, transfer window can change, but I'd be very, very surprised if he's still not there come the end of the week.
Absolutely. Jones, Everton away in the League Cup. By the time most people are listening to this podcast, that game will be tonight. That's Wednesday night, Goodison Park, 7:45 kick-off. We've done all right. Well, we've done very well in the Cup so far. We can only beat what's in front of you, and we've done exactly that. Are you a little bit more concerned going up against Everton, or are you even worried about whether we go through or not?
It's a tough fixture. I think a lot of people will wonder whether we can really afford a cut run given the situation in the league. But
because it costs 50 grand a time.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, literally afford financially and afford it for the fortunes on the pitch. But yeah,
perhaps you'll all chip in, do a GoFundMe or something.
There was a fundraiser actually after David Sullivan mentioned that in his interview. There's a little fundraiser. And I think they got to a few £100 or something like that, and then people stopped chipping in. But I mean, fair play for even setting it up. But
get a minibus for the players.
It's a tough draw. I mean, Everton are flying at the moment. I'm sure they won't field a full strength side, given it looks like they're going all out for it in the Premier League, didn't they? Ancelotti and made some cracking signings in the summer. Calvert-Lewin's on fire. James Rodriguez is just class. So if they field a weakened side, then I reckon we might have half a chance. But it's what side we field as well. But I'm not really expecting us to go through. I'd love to see us go through, but I'd be very, very surprised. I think I'd be more surprised than I was on Sunday night against Wolves.
Yeah, well, David Sullivan was singing the virtues of the strength of West Ham's squad, Tom, or certainly the fringe players as they are at the moment. Are you expected to see what may be considered our B team, if you like, but our weaker team consists of about 180 million quid's worth of talent at the moment, I think.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be the same three up there. It'll be Anderson, Yarmolenko, Haller. That's pretty much a guarantee, I think. Lanzini will play. Noble is now outside, so he'll come into the League Cup side, and then you're going to have one of the young right backs, whether that be Johnson or Ashby, playing. And I think we'll field a decent side, but they were on TV last week, and I saw the side they played against Fleetwood, and it had Richarlison, it had Bernardo. They said a slightly stronger side than we did, and I think Ancelotti, we are in Europe, I think they're very much on the hunt for a trophy quickly because they haven't won something in a long time either. And it seems like a pretty one of those leagues and one of those periods in football where anyone can beat anyone and anybody is beating anyone. And I think both of us, if we get through, or actually fancy ourselves. So I'd love it. I'd honestly love us to play a few of the senior players, actually make a good fist of it, because this is why we're fans. Going to cup finals, I know we won't be there, sorry, but watching a cup final, be involved in something. So I really, really do hope that we go through, even though it's not what I'm expecting, sadly.
I'm totally with you, Jonesy. I think, hopefully we play a strong squad as well. So I'm with you. I think if we do that, beat Everton, bearing in mind it's early in the season as well, so players are still, managers are still trying to get minutes in players' legs, aren't they? I know they're moaning about the compact fixture schedule, but most teams didn't have a proper pre-season. So I think, yes, if we see some strong players and we can get any sort of result and manage to get through to the next round, that will be fantastic. But huge game in the league for West Ham on Sunday. Beat Wolves, which no one expected to last weekend. And it's Leicester away, probably the most informed team in the Premier League, top of the league. Smashed 5 goals past Man City last week. And we've got Josh Jones, sports journalist from The Sun and big Leicester City fan, joining us to talk about that game next. So all three of us hoping that West Ham go through in the Carabao Cup Wednesday night against Everton. A tough task, but certainly doable if West Ham carry on their recent form. One team who has been in fantastic form, in fact, the best form in the Premier League because they sit top at the moment, are Leicester City, thrashing Manchester City at the Etihad, 5-2 at the weekend. And joining us, I'm delighted to say, to run through that Leicester game on Sunday at the King Power, lunchtime kickoff, is Josh Jones, sports journalist from The Sun and big Leicester fan. JJ, lovely to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. What a result at the weekend, first of all. It's the first time Pep Guardiola's conceded 5, I think since he was about 9, playing under 6s or under 10s, Sunday League football, whatever it was. What a result that was.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, gents. It was bonkers. We were a little bit nervous going into it. It's Man City away, and we kind of had a little bit of we had 2 good results going into it, but to the way we kind of set up first 20 minutes, just sit in, try and contain, and good old Riyad Mahrez goes and scores his first goal with his right foot, I think ever, and pings it in the top corner, and we're thinking, here we go. Then we sat in and actually got into the game, played better than Rodri gave us credit for, and went and banged in 5, helped by 3 penalties, of course.
Brendan Rodgers, in the time he's been unbelievable, really. I don't think a lot of people saw it coming. Is there a worry that maybe this season will be the season where he could be poached by one of the top 6 clubs, particularly like a United who look like they're struggling? Spurs are never far away from it. So do you think it could be the year he moves on?
Who was that, sorry?
Brendan Rodgers. Do you think a lot of the big clubs will be looking at him this season?
You've got so many talented people at Leicester, haven't you, JJ? It could have been anyone.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think with Brendan, I think he's been at the King Power, coming up to a year and a half, just about. I think it was February 2019 he came in, and the end of last season, season before, I guess now, was very much kind of finding his feet, implementing this kind of new style where Leicester obviously won the league with that counter-attacking football that worked wonders especially against the big teams. And then learning to play, which was really Leicester's undoing, was trying to break down teams who were willing to sit back against them. So I think actually going away to a game like City, where they could go and sit in and hit on the counter, but also play some good football in between that, was amazing for everyone, really. In terms of him moving on, you can see Brendan, he's got big ambitions. He's an ambitious guy. He wants to win the Premier League. I don't think he'd made that. He hasn't said it outrightly, but he's an ambitious guy. He wants to win the Premier League. Will he do that at Leicester, or has he got a better chance of doing that elsewhere? Let's be honest, he's probably got a better chance of doing that elsewhere. But I think he's got a really good group of players and he's got a good backroom staff, a good board, a good owner. It's at the moment, where's he going to go? Obviously, the two big clubs don't look like they're going to be getting rid of their manager anytime soon. You wouldn't have thought if Man City can keep Pep. Arsenal look like they've got Arteta for the long term. Do you look at a Spurs or a Man United? Possibly. Does he go back to Chelsea? It's got to be a worry, especially if Leicester keep up such a good form this season.
JJ, see, everyone knows about the grievances that West Ham have with the club's ownership. But then if you look over at Leicester, who've had just an incredible, 5 or 6 years under your ownership, and everyone thought you just sort of ended up tailing off after winning the league. Did for maybe sort of half a season, but then it seems to have sort of jumped back up again. What is it that they've done at Leicester, which has allowed that continuity and that consistency of, attracting the likes of Brendan Rodgers, bringing in those players? Surely it's not down to just winning the league one season and then just living off of that reputation. What is it that they're doing at the club to continue grow Leicester the way that they are and do such a great job?
Yeah, it's a great question. They've actually spent, it's about 10 years since the King Power Group bought Leicester City from Milan Mandaric. They celebrated their 10 years earlier this year, and that goes right back from kind of being on the brink of administration through the Championship, through that playoff heartbreak against Watford, obviously, to then get into the Premier League, and then have the Nigel Pearson saga, and then bring in Claudio Ranieri, which a lot of people weren't agreeing with, to go onto the league, to then get rid of Ranieri, etc. But the club, and obviously the late chairman Vichai Shrivadapaba and his son Top, these guys really care. They didn't just want to buy a football club and just throw loads of money at it and hope to get more cash out of it. These guys wanted to get involved in football. They wanted to kind of cultivate a team and make it their own. And whenever, especially when Vichai and Top, and now sadly only Top, whenever they're around the club, they've got such good personal relationships with everyone. They care so deeply. I remember even when I was kind of a kid, I'd be at the ground and you'd meet, like, very, very briefly, but you have a very brief interaction with one of them, and they're so friendly. They just love being around the club, and there's that genuine warmth of, actually, these guys are so respected. And these guys are, like, among the richest people from Thailand, among the richest in the world, let's be honest. But very, very humble, very down to earth. And I think there's a lot of it of, okay, we're not football experts, and we're going to get the people in who know football, who are going to make those kind of decisions as well. But we care about this club, and we want it to do well. And that's been absolutely crucial.
That's got to be that sounds like the absolute perfect mix that you want in an owner, doesn't it? Perhaps especially the awareness that that you might not know the best way to run a football club, and leave that, or hire some professionals who perhaps do, or certainly a specialist in their field. Your recruitment always seems to smash it out the park. I can't think of too many, if any, bad signings you've made over the past 3 or 4 years or whatever. So yeah, sort of an envious position. We were saying the same thing about Wolves going into that game last weekend. JJ, we normally let people go and do this, the Twitter poll segment, without our opposition view guy on, but we'll leave you on it for now so we can wrap up this segment. We put out a Twitter poll, as we do every week, to the We Are West Ham listeners on Twitter. That's _West Ham. If you don't already follow us on Twitter, go and do that now, and you can get involved every week. Jonesy, it was a simple one this week. Sebastian Haller has been banging them in for fun in the Carabao Cup. You and Tom are quick to party and take your shirts off and spin them around your head whenever he does that, because, oh my God, how good is he? You don't like it when I remind you that he's doing it against Championship or League One opposition. However, Mikel Antonio has been doing it in the league again, not in such hot goal-scoring form as he was at the end of last season, but still doing an excellent job in that one up front lone striker role. So we simply put it to the We Are West Ham listeners earlier today, Sebastian Haller or Antonio to start up front versus Leicester. Now, I was the one who put the poll out earlier today, and within minutes, I seem to feel that I perhaps made a mistake in not putting an option for both on there. I don't think that is an option because of the style of play and the formation that we're going to play. He's just not going to play both up front. But Jonesy, what were the final percentages, and what do the We Are West Ham listeners want to see for that up front, or to take that striker's berth against Leicester on Sunday?
Well, it was a pretty runaway winner, Mikel Antonio, with just over 61%. Yeah, I think everyone still wants to see Antonio start up front, even though Haller scored 5 goals already this season. 4 more than Antonio. But you know, is what it is. But there's, as you said, a lot of people have said both. Amir Narozi, both. At A Crosshammer, both. Adam Nunn has said Haller up top, Antonio on the left, and Bowen on the right. But you know, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I suppose Tom told, can we keep the wing back system and play both? Put Yarmo in the number 10 role, which is I'm not too sure about that one, but it does seem as though Antonio's the favourite, just because he runs around a lot more. I think he's a little bit more mobile. But Haller's the better finisher. He was on the pitch for 2 minutes against Wolves and already scored. You know, I can imagine what you could do in 90.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm not biting on this one. Tom, we'll throw to you in a minute. JJ, just while we've still got you, what do you think? If as a Leicester fan, who would you prefer to face? The We Are West Ham listeners there, 61% saying they prefer to see Mikel Antonio. To be quite honest, there's not going to be two up front. So those asking for who'd like to see both, I just don't think that's a realistic situation. There is half a chance. James mentioned there, Haller has been putting him in the League Cup against, Reece Burke and other such defenders. But who would you rather see as a Leicester fan lining up?
I think, especially if we're going with the back two of Evans and Söyüncü, which I think is likely, I'd rather see Haller. I think Söyüncü up against Haller, I'd back Söyüncü out of the two. I haven't watched loads of West Ham so far this season, but especially from what I saw from Sunday's highlights, looked like Antonio was running the show. Personally, I haven't seen the full game, but looked like he was really stretching the defence and really causing problems. And I think I'd rather see Söyüncü and Evans go up against a big man and go kind of head to head with him, rather than having Antonio drawing them out and bringing the others into play.
James Jones looks absolutely furious with that answer you've just given, JJ. Anyone who comes on and suggests that Sebastian Haller should not be in the team is not a popular man. What a battle of the JJs that would be. Tom, what are your thoughts briefly before we get Josh's predictions for Sunday? What are your thoughts on the Haller-Antonio question, if it even is one?
Sadly, I mean, I love Haller. I love him scoring goals, but it has to be Antonio. For me, he's been our best player since lockdown. Antonio's probably one of the best all-round strikers in the league at the minute. I'll go as far to say is what he does for our team and the way he carries us up the pitch. Back to goal striker, I'm talking about. He's one of the most action men striker out there. He does everything. He runs all game. He's quick. He's strong. He bullied Connor Cody at the weekend, absolutely destroyed him. And I think that there's not many centre-halves out there who'd like to play against him. It was only last season Eric Dyer said he's the hardest striker he's played against in the Premier League, and I think he's starting to show it now.
Dyer, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's a Premier League footballer saying hardest striker he's played at Champions League. I think the big, mobile, strong, starting to find goals and get him strikers' goals, not weird Antonio goals where they hit his shin or something, just actually inside in and having a bit of composure there. So Antonio all day.
Excellent. JJ, just before we let you go, let us know how do you think the game's going to play out on Sunday, style-wise, and then give us a quick score prediction.
I think Leicester will go back to a four-man defence. Saw the back five against City where we sat in, but this is a game where we know West Ham are going to be more defensive than City, obviously, well on Sunday. So it's down to Leicester to take the game to West Ham. So I think it'll be back to the 4-1-4-1. Be interested to see who plays on the right of that four, whether it be Cengiz Under making his debut, whether it be Jose Perez comes back in. James Maddison looks like he could well start if Dennis Pratt's not fit. And just looking back to last season at the King Power, I think Leicester won 4-1 with kind of Barnes and Ricardo, and Perez got a couple towards the end. And without trying to sound too biased, I'm fairly confident Leicester will win. I think I'm going to go 3-0. I'm going to go 3-0 Leicester.
3-0. Well, we had Dan from the Wolves 77 podcast was on last week predicting a 2-0 win to Wolves, and we ended up scoring double the amount of goals that he predicted to nil. So fingers crossed for a 6-0 win. West Ham. Just quickly, lads, Jones, I'll throw to you first. Quick score prediction for Leicester on Sunday.
Well, I'll keep the positivity just for your sake, Will. I'm going to say a 2-1 win to West Ham.
Haller Brace.
Absolutely, yeah, off the bench, 90th and 91st minute.
Exactly. Thomas?
1-1. I think 1-1. I think we'll nick something. I think they'll be Wolves and turn up arrogant.
Yeah, no, I like that thinking. Just on the positivity train, I'll go for a 2-2. If I think there will be goals in the game. Leicester are pretty scintillating at the moment, but we seem to somehow be able to find the back of the net, especially against teams that we're not expected to beat. Josh Jones, sports journalist from the Sun, a big Leicester fan. Thanks so much for joining us, and stay with us because we'll have Name That Game next. So, Josh Jones, sports journalist and big Leicester City fan, predicting a 3-0 win for Leicester. Very confident, just as Dan from the Wolves 77 podcast was last week. West Ham obviously upset him. I did text the guys from the Wolves 77 and ask for Dan to be our guest on the opposition view every time we play the Midlands side. We haven't had JJ on before, so yet to see what's going to happen on Sunday, a lunchtime kickoff at the King Power Stadium. However, competition is hotting up over on the We Are West Ham Name of That Game league table as well. I am quizmaster this week for the quiz that has replaced the Road Mystery Players quiz. I will be picking, the quizmaster each week picks a West Ham match from history, and the boys have got to guess pieces of information about that game in descending order. I will start by giving an obscure piece of information about the game, and then it's up to the boys to give me the scoreline, one opposition goal scorer, West Ham goal scorer, the stadium it was played in, the opponent, and the season. It's a point for each one of those pieces of information the lads can give me. They can interrupt at any time. At the moment, James Jones is smashing it, 9 points to my 3, and Tom Edwards is on 2. I'm the quizmaster this week, so no chance for me to get any points. James could extend his lead, or Tom could make it a lot tighter and close that gap on Jonesy. So without further ado, I will start. Lads, fingers on the buzzers. The obscure fact or piece of information about this game is that West Ham went into this match off of the back of 3 consecutive 4-0 defeats. James Jones, for those of you not watching on YouTube, hands on the head, but staying silent as ever. Tom scratching his chin with a pencil. The scoreline, fact number 2, was 2-1. The next piece of information required, if you want to guess, boys, for the chance to win the first point, is an opposition goal scorer. No guesses from the boys. So the opposition goal scorer was Roque Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
Thomas Edwards. So the next piece of information I need from you, Tom, is you need to give me one of the West Ham goal scorers.
Freddie Sears?
That is correct. Tom Edwards, that is 1 point to you. James Jones, it throws over to you to give me the stadium.
Upton Park.
That is correct. That is 1-1. James Jones gets the stadium correct. Tom Edwards, it throws to you for the opponent.
Blackburn.
That is correct. Tom Edwards makes it 2-1 with Blackburn. One piece of information required, James, to take it to a tiebreaker. James Jones, can you tell me what season the game I am talking about took place?
I'm gonna.
Jones has thrust his head down towards the desk.
2009-10.
James Jones to take it to a tiebreaker. That is incorrect. Tom Edwards, you have won for the evening. There will be no tiebreaker. Yeah. However, to make it 3-1 to you, Tom Edwards, can you give me the season in which this game took place?
Is it 07, 08?
Tom Edwards, what a shout. He makes it 3-1 on the night. What a performance from Tom. Total score for the season goes up 5 points for Tom with that. 3-1. Jonesy on the end of it for the first time. But Tom, great shout. I don't know if you were at that game or not. I vividly remember it. Class diving header. Freddie Sears had a shot saved by Brad Friedel, and then he nodded home the rebound. The boy from Hornchurch. It never really happened for Freddie after that, but it was a great moment for those of us at West Ham who love homegrown talent doing well.
It was exactly that, mate. I remember it. It's one of those, for some reason, it's just stuck out so well. It's a good choice. Good choice from you. The moment he scored, he slid right in the corner of celebration. I think Brooking, where I sat, Trevor Brooking and a few of the old boys were actually in some of the boxes, and it just felt like a proper West Ham old school family day. And it was quality, mate. It really was.
It was. We had a bit of a good record against Blackburn at that time. Jonesy, I'm not going to do the rugby joke this week because I feel like for those listening, and even for me as the one who keeps saying it, that has officially got old now. But were you at the game?
I was there. I remember it very, very clearly because I remember turning to my brother, who then was probably only about 11 or 12, and going, remember this kid, mate, this kid's going to be a star. And that's why I remember it so clearly, because I ended up being very, very wrong. But it was a great moment. There's nothing like an academy prospect coming off the bench and getting a winner in a game, particularly after having lost 4-0 3 times consecutively beforehand. So, yeah, I remember it well. I'm glad I just got the point on that one. Takes me up to double figures in the points. So,
Correct.
yeah.
Yep, still. So that's James on 10, Tom Edwards on 5, and me floundering at the bottom with just 3 points. It's a bit of a shame for Freddie, really, wasn't it? It was one of those dream moments. And you know what? Most of us listening to this podcast, certainly the 3 of us recording it, you'd take that, wouldn't you? To score at Upton Park, to win a game once, and then have a reasonably okay footballing career since, probably getting an average of $5,000 a week across all the contracts he's had, bit of time at Ipswich, bit of time at Colchester. All right, he might not have been the Premier League superstar that people were hoping he might be, but when you're from Hornchurch, a goal on your West Ham debut to win the game, that's all right, isn't it? It's certainly more than the vast majority of West Ham fans would get. So I'd certainly take it. Jonesy, I thought you were going to turn to your brother and say that could be you.
No. He was like doing quite well at rugby at the same time as I was, actually. So
oh God,
he was
rugby.
He was pushing for a career in rugby, but enjoyed watching the football. And it didn't work out for either in the end. So
in rugby or football,
exactly. No, neither.
What is this, James? I will move on, but this rugby thing, it was a family pursuit, was it? Are you far less football than you've actually let on this whole time?
No, a lot of my mates say this, but I'm a big fan of both sports. I'm a big fan of sport in general, really. But I grew up playing rugby more than I did football, to quite a decent standard, and rugby was a big part of my family. But I'm also a big football fan. You can like both sports. Incredible, I know. You can enjoy playing and watching both sports. Madness.
No, but those people, I've spent most of the last week with a mouthful of sand being smashed into the ocean floor whilst trying to stand up on a surfboard in the ocean off of the Algarve. However, it just seems, even though it's a completely far-fetched notion that I would be a surfer to those people who know me, it still seems more fathomable or feasible than watching you on a rugby pitch.
I was quite good back then. I was quite a good player. Yeah, I was.
And you were centre as well.
Yeah, I was centre. Started out as a winger, but moved inside to centre.
Who was the best team you played for, in case anyone listening's heard of the team?
I didn't play for anyone massive. I played for my local team, Woodford, which I'm sure some listeners would have heard of. But played against Saracens at youth level. I played against some decent sides. Got to the Essex Cup final once. Lost that.
Yeah, I think a few of my old mates from school used to play for South Woodham Ferrers, and they used to play Woodford. But I digress. Too much rugby chat for the We Are West Ham podcast. That's nearly it for this evening's show. It's been a long one. By accident, I must admit, once again, but just one more segment. So stay with us because we've got the We Are West Ham Women segment next. And we haven't got the We Are West Ham Women segment. I keep saying we're going to have the We Are West Ham Women segment because that's an idea that Tom came up with a few weeks ago. He wants us to do a women's version of this podcast. We've just got the West Ham Women segment next. You are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. And once again, it's been an absolutely packed show, the We Are West Ham podcast. A little longer this season than it was last, with a couple of new segments, the Betway charity bets, and of course the West Ham Women's segment, which we wrap up the podcast with each week. You've got all this far. We've got all this far. Me, James, and Tom. So stay with us just for this last little bit. It's been a busy week for the women. No WSL action or no domestic women's football action. They're all off on an international break at the moment, playing qualifiers for next summer's Euro 21, which is being held in England. It was a busy week. We ran through where all the West Ham girls were off to last week. And Alicia Lehmann scored the winner for Switzerland against Belgium in their Euro 21 qualifier on Tuesday, which put Switzerland top of Group H. Good stuff for Alicia. Jonesy, your personal favourite player of the season, Czech Footballer of the Year, Katarina Svitkova. I think she had a run out as well.
Yeah, my favourite player in the squad. I mean, Czech Footballer of the Year. I mean, you can't get any better than that, can you? So, and she started both Czech Republic's games versus Poland, 0-0 and a 2-0 win. She did pick up a bit of a knock, but apparently she should be all right once the season restarts when she's back with the team. So, but yeah, decent international run out for Katarina and Czech Republic.
That's all you got hope for, isn't it? The Matt Beard, the manager of the women's team, just hoping with all international breaks that they come back not with no injuries. Tom, Kenza Dali, I don't think had much of a chance to pick up an injury. Didn't actually play I think she played half an hour across France's 2 games. Am I right?
Mate. Yeah. So France played twice, and she didn't feature in their first win in a 2-0 win against Serbia. But she did get a 30-minute run out when they beat North Macedonia 7-0, the mighty North Macedonia. But mate, yeah, it's probably good for the club that she's come back fit, and I'm sure she'll get another chance if France is playing some good stuff at the minute.
Exactly. The one thing that did really impress me when I was keeping up to date with all the girls' action this week was the 21-year-old Leanne Kiernan. She got a 20th Irish cap. I mean, they were unfortunate. They lost 3-0 away to Germany, which puts Ireland second in Group I behind the Germans. But 20 international caps at the age of 21 is some impressive feat for Leanne there. And Molly and Rosie Comita, who came on the podcast last season, are good friends of Leanne from their time at West Ham, and so she's a great girl as well. And just congratulations, while we're on the topic, actually, to Rosie Comita, who's come out of retirement and is lining up for Championship side Watford. Now, some great training shots of Rosie the other day. So we wish Rosie the best of luck and hope to speak to her again on the We Are West Ham podcast later on this season. 2 more, Grace Fisk and Rachel Daly, were part of England's training camp at St George's Park. The Lionesses, Phil Neville's team, had some training games. Obviously, England are already qualified for next summer's tournaments as they are hosts, but the girls got together anyway for a training camp. Lads, one bit of a busy international weekend, but one thing we've spoken before on the podcast, especially when it was a radio station before, Jonesy, we've done a couple of things on general mental health awareness. We're both big advocates of it, as I know you are, Tom, as well. And we're encouraging, obviously you earlier, Jonesy, encouraging people to check themselves for physical illnesses in line with the stuff you're doing this season for the Dylan Tombides Foundation. But important for everyone listening as well to, check themselves mentally. It's much more of a mainstream thing these days. We always hope that everyone listening has got someone to talk to, and if they haven't, they can certainly reach out to us here at We Are West Ham Pod at gmail.com. If ever there's problems, obviously talk to someone. However, the squad goals documentary is running on the BBC Three at the moment. Is available to watch through iPlayer, and it's an in-depth documentary on women's football. West Ham obviously feature heavily in the documentary, and a recent footage emerged this week from the documentary of West Ham women's captain Gilly Flaherty talking about her attempt to take her own life 10 years ago. So we'll listen to that. You can listen to that clip here.
I remember going to the hospital, my mum and dad coming in and crying. The reason for me doing it was because I just couldn't cope. I remember speaking to our media guy, Mitch, and I just said, listen, there's something that I want to talk about. We wanted to link it in with something, and the Time to Talk campaign and the Heads Up campaign was something that we felt worked really well with it.
There's no really easy way to get into this. Yeah.
I felt vulnerable because I think I've got this sort of persona as a captain, and I'm tough on the pitch. But if my story can stop one person from doing it, or someone to think twice about it, then that means more to me than anything else.
Okay, Mitch will explain what tomorrow is and what's going to be happening over the next 2-3 days.
For those that aren't aware, tomorrow is Time to Talk Day, and that's in lead up to the Heads Up campaign that's happening across English football. I've been working with Gilly on this bit of content. It's some stuff that's going to be going out on our website and in the national media from around tomorrow morning. You'll see it in newspapers, then it'll be on like the BBC and things from Friday. We just thought it was very important that you guys got to see that content before it was in the national mainstream media. So whenever you're ready, Matt, we're ready to show it.
I'm bubbly, do you know what I mean? I'm outgoing, I'm always smiling and always happy, and that's how I am now. But that wasn't how I was 11 years ago. I remember being 16 and a coach telling me that I was fat, basically. I was living away from home. I wasn't close to my family at all. And then obviously I was dealing with the fact that I knew deep down that I was gay, and I didn't know how to handle that. So there was a range of things that I was dealing with, and to be honest, completely honest, I didn't deal with them, really.
Was there a point where things got really bad?
Yeah, there was a point when I made the decision that I was going to take an overdose at 17. And yes, sorry.
Don't apologise at all. It's a huge thing that you're talking about.
I should have spoke to my mum and dad, do you know what I mean? And I remember going to the hospital, my mum and dad coming in and crying. The reason for me doing it was because I just couldn't cope. I didn't know how to handle it, and I just thought, do you know what, I'm just better off not being here.
How surprised do you think your teammates, friends and family will be to realise what you went through?
Yeah, I think they'll be shocked. This is why I felt like I had to say it, because it's the people that you least expect it from. Even if someone's got everything going on in their life, doesn't mean they're not going through a tough time. But you have to talk. If I can get myself out and save myself, then anybody can.
An incredibly powerful and brave interview.
Footballers have an on-the-field persona and an off-the-field persona. Her on-the-field persona, I've seen her play many times, she's brave, she's a leader, she'll make a tackle. This is possibly the bravest thing she's ever had to do.
Yeah, really important.
And impressive.
Discussion.
Proud of her for doing that.
Oh, mate, more than that. More than proud. Yeah, what can you say? I mean, for someone to come out and say, I tried taking my own life like 10 years ago, and to say, look, it's all right to pick the phone up if you're struggling. You know, people will be there for you. For her to come out and do that, it just sums her up to character. Yeah, I love her to pieces. She's a diamond.
So moving stuff there from Gilly. Obviously great to hear that sort of 10 years on from that harrowing, tough time in her life, that things are certainly looking up for her. But obviously the coach calling her fat is something that obviously affected her. And then problems that you just basically, she admitted it there, just wasn't able to cope. And her mum and dad coming in, seeing her like that in hospital, you know, just really struggling and wishing she'd reached out to someone. First of all, James, I'll throw to you. I mean, how brave is that from Gilly? She's obviously got an elevated platform. She's a leader on the pitch, really vocal, and is as a popular figure amongst the in the dressing room at West Ham. But as we're always, or I certainly, we like to try and remind people listening that although we care about West Ham, we want them to win every week, and we're passionate about what's going on at the club at whatever level, on the pitch or in the boardroom. It is just football, and the important thing in life is the people around you. And what a brave thing for Gilly to do there, Jonesy, and something that sort of transcends football, doesn't it?
No, it's incredibly brave, and I think as you mentioned before, we've spoken about this on the show previously about about how important it is to just take a step back and just think if you speak to someone, it makes things a lot easier, and she's managed to overcome a lot of the issues that she had in the past, and just full credit to her, and to come out and actually tell her story, and hopefully that gives other people the inspiration and the ability to be able to talk to people and overcome their battles and their problems that they're fighting with, because people need to know that they're never alone, and whatever's going on in their head, if you can speak to someone, then it goes a long way in helping. And she's earned a lot of respect from everyone, not just at the football club, but fans and neutrals and everyone. And as you said, she's got that platform and she's used it in the right way. And I think if she can help at least one person overcome their battles and their issues, then it's a job well done, really. And full credit to her. So much respect.
It can. You're right, and it can be a bit of a cliche, can't it? That statement there, James. If she's helped just one person,
it can be, but it's true, though, isn't it?
No, you're right. That's what I was going to say. Ultimately, in this day and age, we're lucky to live in an age now where mental health and things like that are spoken about so much more freely. And ultimately, now there will be lots of people listening to this who've heard that message time and time again, and it's brilliant that it is repeated so often. And the fact that some people might be getting bored of it because they don't feel like they need to, or they might have done in the past and got over it, that message, certainly Gilly coming out saying like that now, might reach someone who hasn't quite felt strong enough to be able to go and do that, or to reach out to someone, either a family member or a professional. Both things are massively important. But yeah, an important message to give out from Gilly's point of view, Tom. And I think that especially if someone with her profile as well, the scenes there of the rest of the squad watching the footage, they were obviously moved by it, someone they all look up to on and off the pitch, no doubt. But with something like that, it's important, and it's a great thing that she's done, isn't it?
Absolutely, mate. And I think with lockdown, mental health really came to the fore for a lot of people, and having something like that, an inspirational figure, one of the really most successful women in the WSL. She's won everything, and the real leader probably in the division as a personality and as a person. And it's just amazing that she's had the courage to come out and let people in and see her story and help a few people out by bearing her heart to everyone, and it's really impressive, and nothing but respect. And I think the football community reacted with nothing but respect, and I hope it's done her the world of good, that being out and seeing the reaction to that and seeing how much people are behind her. And also for the people watching who are in a similar position but feel like they're on their own, because there's people out there, like you said earlier, rich, famous, poor, whatever. There's a lot of people struggling, and seeing someone like that who's widely respected come out and show their problems and show that it's something which affects us all is massively important, and good on her, because it's a really inspirational thing she's done. And I really recommend everyone going out and watching it.
Absolutely, yeah. So just a couple of things to note there. If there is anyone, struggling listening to this, do drop us a line at wearewesthampod@gmail.com. Me and the lads always pick those up, and always happy to have a chat or lead you in the right direction if that's something you want to do. Just thanks to West Ham, that audio made available from the West Ham Women Twitter and BBC Three is where that audio you just heard from Gilly. So thanks to those for listening to that. What a show, lads. Absolutely brilliant. Packed one already. Lovely doing it when West Ham have won a game, isn't it? Remember, just a little bit of housekeeping before we go. That Fantasy Football League available for you to join if you want to do that. The code is on our Twitter page at @WeAre_West Ham. If you don't already follow us on there, go and do that now. The code is all lowercase CNY6, the letter OU. Hundreds of people sign up already, so do come and join. Follow us on Twitter, like I just said, at @WeAre_West Ham. Follow us on Instagram as well. What we do like, we say it every week, is if you can give us a review, 5 stars, and a written review is lovely on all of the platforms on which you currently listen or watch We Are West Ham. Like, rate, subscribe, whatever it is. We appreciate all of those. And of course, go over and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll have seen me in my Larry shirt this evening from Portugal. James in his DT38 Dylan Tombides merch, and Tom Edwards rocking that street man chain like nobody else can. So the podcast, the YouTube description is in the link, is in the YouTube link even is in the description to this podcast. So do go down there and follow it. Big week, big few days coming up for West Ham. Everton away in the Carabao Cup and Leicester away in the Premier League on Sunday. Let's hope for another repeat of the 4-0 against Wolves. We can't guarantee it, but one thing we know where West Ham are concerned, there will be goals and there will be drama. Keep the faith, everyone. Up the hammers, and we'll see you next week.